Hey guys, it is day 53 of our Bible reading plan. We are at the end of the book of Leviticus. We're reading Leviticus 26 and 27 today, and we're going to find that this book closes out with a call to faithfulness to God's covenant that he's been making with the Israelites. He has laid out all of the details of that covenant, how to fulfill it, how to be considered holy in his presence, and how to live their very lives. He has laid it all out. Leviticus closes with this reminder at the end of 27. It says, "These are the commands the Lord gave Moses at Mount Sinai for the Israelites." And as we're closing out the book, and I've been reflecting on the book of Leviticus and the process that God has laid out for his people and the time that has been taken to show them what it really means to be his people. He has told them, "You will be my people and I will be your God," repeatedly throughout this book. He has said that I will be with you. I will dwell among you. I will put my presence among you over and over again in this book, as long as they live according to his ways. And the book closes with this call to be faithful and the blessing that comes from faithfulness. It says in chapter 26, it says, "Do not make idols or set up an image or a sacred stone for yourself, and do not place a carved stone in your land to bow down before it. I am the Lord your God." And I'm just reminded how many times he tells them, don't worship other gods, worship him alone. Their worship is supposed to be reserved for the Lord. They are his people. He is their God. And they should not be wandering around chasing after other gods. He says in verse 2, "Observe my Sabbaths and have reverence for my sanctuary. I am the Lord." He's given them the call to Sabbath over and over again in his call to honor him and remember what he's done. And to even in celebrating the feasts, there is Sabbath incorporated in all of that. It's a repeated theme through the book of Leviticus, to trust in God, to trust in his call and what he's doing, to stop working and honor him and remember what he's done for them, where they've been, where they've come from, and what he's doing and how he is the source of provision in their lives. And he says, "Have reverence for my sanctuary." Worship the Lord in the way that he desires to be worshiped. Treat his dwelling place with reverence and respect his laws and his decrees around those things. And he says in verse 3, "If you follow my decrees and are careful to obey my commands, I will send you rain in its season. The ground will yield its crops and the trees their fruit. Your threshing will continue until grape harvest, and the grape harvest will continue until planting, and you will eat all the food you want and live in safety in your land." He says, "I will grant peace in the land, and you will lie down, and no one will make you afraid. You will pursue your enemies, and they will fall by your sword. I will look on you with favor and make you fruitful and increase your numbers." The Lord says, "I will keep my covenant with you." And he says, "I will put my dwelling place among you, and I will not abhor you. I will walk among you and be your God, and you will be my people." And it's this beautiful picture that if God's people could be faithful to the covenant they've already agreed to, if they can follow and obey his decrees and his commands and live according to the way he's calling them to follow him, then he is going to bless them, and he's going to bless them in a way that he will be with them and walk among them as he did in the garden before Adam and Eve sinned. They need only to be faithful to their covenant. And then that blessing and promise is followed by a description of what will happen if they will not listen and they will not carry out his decrees and commands. And I think that sometimes I'm reminded of how often we want the blessing of God. We long for the blessings of God, the good life he has for us, for him to be with us, to dwell among us, to experience his presence and his blessing in our lives. But we don't want to follow him or live according to his ways. And we struggle with that. And we're going to see Israel is going to struggle with this. They're going to struggle to be faithful to this covenant. And this is the old covenant. This is the old covenant that God makes with his people. This is the promise he makes to them. These are the commandments that he has set. He has given them everything they need to follow him. And what we're going to see over and over again is they want the blessing and they want the presence. But following is so difficult. And I'm just reminded, even for myself, of how much I long for the presence of God. I long for the blessing of God. But the outworking of following him is not always easy. But it is always worth it. So that's what stood out to me. That's what encouraged me today, is that just the reminder that the blessing of God, the blessing we receive from drawing near to the presence of the Lord, from following his decrees and commands, from living the way he calls us to, the blessing we receive is always worth it. The presence of God is always worth it. It might not always be easy, but it is always worth it. All right, guys, have a great day. I can't wait to hear what you thought about the reading today.